Well, greetings from the chilly Ozarks. I'm Dan with Four Winds Ancestral Skills. Today, I got a little bit of a challenge ahead of me. I'm out here in the woods. I don't have any tools, any food, water, anything like that. Pretty much have the clothes on my back, some gloves, a wool beanie, and a shamog. And of course, camera gear to film it all. But with no tools, I'm gonna see if I can survive a chilly night. It's supposed to get down to 20 degrees, have rain, and then turns into snow. Let's see how it goes. Got a lot to do, so let's get started. Well, like I mentioned before, I'm out here with pretty much just my clothing and no equipment whatsoever. I'm gonna need to do something about shelter, top priority, so I don't freeze to death. So, since I don't have anything, the kind of the go-to in this area anyway would be a debris shelter. You can do that with just your bare hands. So I'm gonna run around, collect what I need, mainly some sticks and just an ungodly amount of leaves, and start collecting those over here. While you're doing that, keep an eye out for other resources. Just walking down here, I came across this mullein stalk. I pulled it up as I was walking, just stripped the leaves off with my hands. Also, keep an eye out for stones, especially like this that have sharp edges. Are extremely useful. So you can take a stone with a sharp edge like this and smooth out your mullein stalk or do any number of different tasks. But these are excellent resources that are just laying around, and you can use them, especially if you don't have anything better like a big knife or something like that. Now, shelter is my biggest priority right now with the weather coming in like it is. That doesn't mean I can't make a hand drill kit. Just take a few minutes of my time and do that. I can take this sharp rock, kind of smooth this mullein stalk out, and look around here. I'm sure I can find a stick. Spend a couple minutes flattening it out a little bit, and then I'll put it back here on a rock that's facing the sun while I'm working on the shelter. These things will be hopefully drying out a little bit. A hand drill, you want as dry as possible for it to work. Just because you're out here, don't get laser focused on one thing. Keep in the back of your mind that you have a lot of different needs out here, and if you see something, type of resource, you might as well grab it while you can. Alright, that'll work for the spindle. Now I'll just come over here and find a dry piece of wood and get that set out in the sun. Alright, I came across some sticks here. They are actually already up on some rocks, so they're not laying on wet ground. This one here, you can take your thumb and kind of push into it. See how hard the wood is? This wood is soft enough it should work for a hand drill. Alright, now we have this stick. We're just going to flatten off a section here, and this is pretty dry wood, so what we can do is those shavings we can actually leave up here and use those for our tinder bundle later. Okay, you can see I made a flat spot right here. Now this rock here is a kind of a southerly facing rock. There's no real lichens or anything like that on it to hold much moisture. So what I'll do is just take my hearthboard stick and this spindle right here, place them out here, and they can get a decent breeze up here and plenty of sunshine. So that'll help dry them out a little bit further. Alright, now that our fire kit's drying, we can focus on the shelter, which ultimately is the most important thing. It's still pretty early in the day, so I have enough time to do this. It will take most of a day though, so I do need to get going on it. Now to do that, this is the location I chose. You kind of want to survey the area. You want a fairly flat area. You don't want a bunch of dead trees and stuff like that above it, and you don't want a soggy area like in a drainage area over there, anywhere too close to that little creek that I showed earlier. So this is the location I chose. I want the entrance to face east or southeast, somewhere in there. because most of our weather comes from the northwest. So like with most shelters, you want the door facing away from the weather that comes in. First thing I want to do is rake the leaves away here so I can see what I'm dealing with. And I just broke off this branch. Now if you break a branch off, it makes a much better rake than trying to get in there with your hands and trying to brush everything away. Not to mention it protects your hands if there's any kind of sharp sticks or rocks or anything, you don't get jabbed or cut. Now that this area is exposed, that does two things. It gets the stuff that was on the ground off, so you can expose the ground and see what's down there if there's sharp rocks or hazards of any kind. Also, as you can see, the leaves and dirt and everything that's on the ground right here are all extremely damp. If I have an option, I like to use the wet leaves and stuff like that on the top, and then cram the inside with actually dry leaves if they're available. If not, you got to make do with what you can. Alright, what we're looking for now is to get an outline of our body. That way we can build the frame. So what we want to do, lay back, and you're looking to get a measurement about 1 fist away from your body. Especially when it's getting cold, you don't want a lot of extra room. You want it to be kind of snug in there. So what you're looking for is about 1 fist away. So you can take just sticks and kind of mark that. And then mark where your feet are at. And lay back. Mark where your shoulders are at. And then you want about if you've ever been to Hawaii and you're familiar with the shaka, the kind of the hang loose type hand gesture, you want to take that and mark about where that is, up above your head. Now that it's all marked out, you can come in here and get going on the frame. A ridgepole, you can prop that up against rocks or a tree, pretty much anything. Or you can do it freestanding like I'm about to right here. I just have a couple Y branches that I broke off, and these will be used to support that ridgepole, which I have right here. This here is stable now. You want the front of this around crotch high. But we can double check everything here. Alright, that's plenty. You don't want it overly big, especially when it's really cold out. Well, now that the height on this thing's taken care of, we need to put on some ribbing. Now when you're doing the ribbing, you don't want to have the ribs sticking way out above the top of the shelter generally, especially not in a cross. So what you want to do is break them off at kind of the appropriate height. A lot of the stuff you can use smaller, you can just do it by hand, but you can also do it from a tree with a kind of two trees close together. Something say this size. This is partially rotten, so it's not full strength, but you can come in here and just break this. Like that. And then you can use this as ribbing, and you don't have to hurt yourself trying to break something a little bit too large to just do under your foot or on your knee. Alright, I did the back side. It's pretty much done. Now I'm going to be working on the front side. And one thing to keep in mind, these ribs here don't need to be exactly next to each other. They can have little gaps in between. The smaller sticks and debris and everything will kind of plug that gap. So a little bit of a gap between them is not a problem. Alright, now that we got the frame done, we need to start dumping a bunch of debris on here. Putting the debris on here is probably the most time-intensive part, honestly. If you have a blanket or tarp or something, you can take that, lay it out, dump a bunch of leaves on it, and then drag them back from a good distance away. If not, you can just either use your hands or something like this, just a forked stick you can use to kind of rake. The leaves in the immediate area, you can just kind of rake to the shelter. A debris shelter like this, you're going to need to get leaves from a distance away. So it's good to kind of rake it in little piles, grab the piles, and come over here and dump it. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now for the inside, I like to use kind of material like this here. It's very light and kind of fluffy leaves. As you're raking and gathering up the leaves, you'll see that oftentimes the lower levels they'll be soggy, damp, have a lot of sticks and all kinds of stuff. But for the inside, you want to try to minimize the little sticks and just get nice fluffy dry leaves if possible. Like I said, minimize the sticks. And you want to stuff this thing full of nice fluffy dry leaves as much as you can. Just pack it full. Alright, before I work any more on this door here, I'm going to get in there, kind of roll around a little bit, and what that'll do is compress these leaves down some, because right now they're just packed in there. This will help kind of establish a base bedding layer. So I have a shamag here. It is good to tie something around the bottom of your shirt or tuck your shirt in or something, because if you don't, you're gonna get leaves and all kinds of other crap up your shirt. So this kind of helps mitigate that a little bit. Alright, it's that easy. Now what I'll do is I'll get more leaves and jam more leaves in there and kind of repeat the same process. Just get in there, kind of wiggle around a little bit, and should be good to go. All right, we got the front of our shelter pretty much done here, at least this part of it. What we're gonna do is build a little overhang coming out a little ways. That'll help be able to pile more debris towards the front, and that'll give us more of a door that we can actually seal off. Because if you leave it open more or less like this, your heater will just all escape. So, got a few branches here. Well, if this looks like an obscene amount of leaves, it pretty much is. You want at least a couple of feet of insulation over the whole thing. So the more leaves, the better. And it's going to be a cold night tonight, so you got to pile them on. And here's what it looks like on the inside. Like I said, it's pretty tight, pretty claustrophobic in there, but it will keep you warm even if it gets real cold out. Well, all right, the shelter's pretty much done now. Unfortunately, it did take me most of the day, especially gathering up that obscene amount of leaves. Since I did use up most of the day, there's only a couple hours of daylight left in the day, so I'm going to have to do what I can with it. I'm going to go grab my fire kit, get that wrapped up, and hopefully get a fire here soon. I don't have any flashlights or headlamps or anything like that with me, so it's a new moon right now. So it's going to be a very dark night if I can't get a fire going. Cross your fingers. Hopefully I can get a fire going. Alright, if you've seen the hand drill fire, you probably have a pretty good idea what I'm doing. I flattened this portion of the stick out before I left it up there to dry. But this hearthboard still needs a burn in, essentially, and then a notch cut. So what I'm going to do is hollow out a little divot in here with this sharp rock. Alright, we want to lay a rock down, make sure the hearthboard doesn't come in contact with the actual dirt. The dirt's still really soggy. And place our foot on there, keep everything fairly stable. Alright, that'll work for a burn-in. Just set our spindle off to the side, and we just got to cut a notch in here. Alright, I have my tinder bundle right here, ready to go. I have my leaf catch. Now we just make fire. There we go. Alright, we got our coal. Alright, we just throw this on our fire and we'll be good to go. Alright, my fire's going good. That's burning that down over there to some coals. Next step I need to do is get some water, because I've been working all day and it is pretty chilly out here, but I still need to drink. Even if you don't really crave a lot of water, your body still needs it. If you saw the previous video I did a burn bowl using no tools. Well, I'm actually camping in the same spot today, and I ran across the burn bowl I made last time around. So since it's already out here, I'm going to go ahead and utilize this and boil some water and make some pine needle tea. Alright, well, I got my fire going good, which is definitely a good thing. I'm running out of daylight out here. One quick tip for you guys, to figure out how much daylight is actually left, you can extend your arm out, and if you put the bottom of your hand on the horizon, however many fists up to the sun is how many hours is left. So say if I put it up and the horizon would be here, the sun would be right here, that would mean there is about an hour of daylight left. And so putting my fist up there, it looks like an hour and a half, somewhere in there. Once the sun goes below the horizon, you've got roughly a half an hour of twilight. If it's not overcast. If it's overcast, it can get dark a bit faster, but that's just kind of a general guideline. So I have max about 2 hours of daylight left, or of workable light left. So I have a few things I want to do. Obviously, shelter is the most important thing tonight, especially since it is getting so cold. I already have a fire going. That's not a problem. The shelter itself doesn't require any kind of fire. It has just a ton of insulation around it, so that's how it keeps you warm. The fire is for my use, especially into the night. Wintertime, sun sets fairly early, and I enjoy sitting by a campfire, so why not? The two other priorities, now that I have shelter and fire taken care of, are water and food. Water, fairly high priority. There is a spring right over here. You can do stone boiling. or a coyote well. You don't generally want to drink it straight because it could have all kinds of contamination. A coyote well works pretty well, especially if you're in a hurry. I'll probably just do another video on how to make and use a coyote well, but I've had pretty good luck with them and haven't gotten sick, cross my fingers. The other way is to stone boil the water. You boil the water, you'll kill any kind of pathogens that might be in. The other priority would be food. It's the middle of winter, it's kind of hard to forage. There are a decent amount of acorns that I've been picking up as I've been going around, and a few hickory nuts that I found. I can definitely eat those. I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time foraging. Even though it's wintertime, there are things to forage, but oftentimes they'll take a little bit of time. All right, we got our little stream here and our burn bowl. Just need to fix this area up a little bit so we can actually get it in the water. Alright, now that we dug this out, it's good to wait a couple minutes. All this murk and mud in here in the water will run off and settle and everything. So we'll just give this a minute to clear, and then we'll take our container and fill it up. Alright, that's looking a little bit better now. Now we got our container full of water. Let's head back to camp. Alright, the water's all ready. Finished stone boiling it. Now it's just time to add some pine needles. You just kind of grind them up in your hand a little bit and put them in there. So. Alright, pine needle tea. Let's give it a taste. Not too bad. It's a little bit more difficult to drink out of than I'm used to, but it'll work. Especially for doing some foraging this time of year. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of time to do foraging much for food, but at least I can get something to drink. I did manage to gather a decent amount of acorns and some hickory nuts that I just found laying out here. If you do come across a resource like that, it's always good to pick it up and put it in your pocket while you're walking by. I obviously don't have time tonight to leach those acorns, but I can eat the hickory nuts. I don't have very many of them, but it'll provide a little bit of a snack, and then tomorrow we can see what we got going on. There's definitely nothing quite like sitting by a campfire on a cold night. Well, it looks like it might actually skip the rain and go straight to snow. I saw a few flakes drifting down here just a minute ago. I think it's supposed to snow a couple inches. The shelter I built over here, that's not a problem. It can shrug that off without any issues. Rain, snow, sleet, whatever. And it's pretty thick, so I should be able to, no matter how cold it gets, I should be good to go. I think it's supposed to get down into the low 20s tonight, but whatever happens, that'll be plenty warm enough to keep me warm no matter what. My shamog, I took a bunch of leaves, wrapped them up in the shamog, so I can use that when I get in there to pull against to help make kind of a modified door on the front of that. that should also help keep me warm. Well, dinner was a little bit scarce. I had only had some hickory nuts, but that was I made some more pine needle tea. That'll keep me going till tomorrow, and then I can see what I can rustle up around here. By the time I got through with everything, it was almost dark, so there wasn't a lot of time to go around doing much foraging anyway, but oh well, at least I got a little bit of a snack. Before long, I'll head into the shelter. Figured I'd film a little bit of video. I'm not sure how much I can shoot when I'm actually in the shelter. Probably the only thing you can see in there, if I got in there, was just solid black. So I'll sign off for the night, and catch y'all in the morning. Well, good morning. You can see it's a beautiful, foggy, cloudy day. Well, I survived the night. This is definitely not the most comfortable shelter in the world, but it will keep you fairly warm, especially with all this insulation. Saw it was snowing a little bit last night, but I don't think it really stuck. It probably didn't get much below freezing, so the snow just kind of melted and got everything kind of wet. So this did me pretty well. I made this little door plug, drag in there with me, kind of seal up the doorway, and then push some leaves up against it, and it worked pretty well as a little door, and it did keep it fairly warm in there. Initially it was cold, and after a little while it finally started warming up a little bit, but yeah, it worked pretty well and made without any tools, so I can't complain. Well, the fire burnt down. If you have a really good fire, even if it rains or snows or anything like that on it, as long as it's not a torrential downpour, the coals in here will still be hot. So you can use those and get a fire going. I just need to get a little tinder bundle and some smaller stuff, and I can build this back to life. Alright, I got the fire kindling, and I'm getting hungry. I got a few hickory nuts from last night, but I could use a few more calories if I can find some around here. It is wintertime, but that doesn't mean there's nothing around here to find. Alright, this here should work. Cattails. They're always a good source of food. This is what I got here. Decent sized root on this thing. You just kind of get all the dirt and muck off of it. And we can take this back and cook it up. Alright, from a distance this just might look like some grass, but it's actually wild onions. This should go pretty well with our cattails we're going to cook up this morning. This here is actually the best part. They're little sprouts. You can eat these fresh right off the plant. This one's a little bit on the young side. It's still pretty early in the winter. Usually into February, March, these things get really big, and you know, they'll be decent sized chunks, but it's still not bad how it is right now. Kind of a cucumber taste. Alright, when I was walking around out here, came across this. This is actually wood ear. It looks disgusting, but it's actually an edible fungus. So I'll grab some of this and bring it back for my breakfast. I put those cattails in the fire for a bit on these rocks and kind of roasted them up a little bit. And then I threw them in the burn bowl, and now I'm just stone boiling them with the onions and the wood ear. All right, this is looking pretty good. I may not have a fork, but I do have the next best thing, chopsticks. Always good to know how to use chopsticks in the field. Not too shabby. Delicious. Actually really good. Well, while I'm here, I figure I might as well eat the rest of these hickory nuts. Well, it's been fun out here, but it's time to head back. At least I won't be heading back without something to show for it. I got stuffed all my pockets full of acorns, so I can go back later and make those into some flour. But if you have any comments or questions about anything, feel free to either put them down in the comment section below, or you can email me fourwindsancestral@gmail.com. And as always, check out my website, fourwindsancestralskills.com. If you did enjoy this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button. That way you can hopefully catch the next one that comes out. Anyway, Prost. Well, this has been Dan with Four Winds Ancestral Skills, reminding you to get out there and make history. Take care.